Okay, awesome. So some of you guys remember me from John's groups previously, but I wanted to give a bit of an update on what I've been doing and to formally introduce myself to the people that I haven't met. So this is a bit of a timeline for my small business journey so far. Got married at 18, straight out of school, started working for a bank as a training officer. Michael and I, my husband, started our first business. He was cleaning carpets for somebody, and we recognised that we both felt that we could create a business and actually do more in the world working for ourselves, even at that young age. I went on, after starting our family in 2000, to work for Bank West as a continuous improvement officer. So had a lot of impact, I guess, in talking to shareholders from different areas of the bank, retail, sales, corporate, to get an understanding of where people's pain points were and then try to find solutions that were cost effective, and then right training to deliver those solutions across the bank. So I really got a start in my love of training at that time. In 2008, just as the GFC hit, Michael had been working for a friend of ours as managing the Autobarn in Joondalup, and he saw the potential to buy that, so we did. We still own that, and now it runs under management, and we do the admin and HR and things like that, but day to day we're not in the business now, so it's given us the capacity to move on and look at other things. While we've been doing that and I've been having more children, we now have 3 children, 3 boys, I went to TAFE. I thought I wanted to change directions. I did a diploma of counselling and community services. I worked for the Department of Child Protection for a little while with, I guess you could say, at-risk youth in residential care facilities, and really had my eyes open to the world of trauma-informed care. I then started my business, Miraculous Me, wanting to provide counselling and therapy to people. Did some integrated trauma therapy, which is a really somatic-based practice. So it's not only talk therapy, but it's body-based therapy, so it really goes deeper. Decided that I am a perpetual student and went back to uni to study my BA of psychology, which I will finish early next year. I'm excited about that. I think I've just decided to go on and do honours, so Michael's going to love that one. I opened Health Intent because I saw my business journey and the struggles that Michael and I had had from in Autobarn across the years, and an opportunity to combine my counselling and my psychology knowledge and actually help and make a difference to small businesses. So I've created Health Intent, and Eco Power Wash is Michael's new business because we are people that like to be doing things. So he has just started that. So I wanted to sort of introduce where small businesses sit at the moment in the world. So as far as Australia is concerned, small business and family enterprise make up over 95% of all businesses registered for GST. And I suppose there is so many more small micro businesses that aren't registered for GST that haven't actually been captured in these figures. But 62% of them are non-employing sole traders. And I think this is a space that I can actually make a real difference, talking about mental health, about connection, and you'll see where I'm heading with that. So women currently make up 35% of the registered business owners. And over the last 3 years in Australia, between COVID, floods, bushfires, the impact to small business and their sustainability has been 54% greater than previous years before the pandemic. So people are really feeling a lot of that at the moment. Teaching mental health first aid has really given me the capacity to understand some of the statistics of mental health and what people experience. So 1 in 5 people will actually have a diagnosable mental illness at any moment. And mental health is a spectrum. It's a continuum, if you like. So you have health and well-being on one side, and then on the other end of that spectrum, you have a diagnosable illness, which actually stops people being able to work in the world and do their normal daily habits. So 1 in 5 of us, and there's maybe 20 or 15 of us here at the moment, so at least 3 statistically may be experiencing diagnosable illness right now. So recently, a survey in the UK said that small to medium enterprise owners, it's more like 4 to 5 experience worsening mental health. So not diagnosable, but worsening. And that showed up as difficulty focusing, difficulty sleeping, signs of depression, and interestingly, 24% experiencing panic attacks for the first time in their life. Obviously, COVID was shown to be a major impact on the mental health, but 78% of the people surveyed in the UK said they worried about cash flow. So I think that worry, which is a precursor for anxiety and some of those other things that they experienced, is one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing at the moment. They did a survey recently of 253 Australian owners, and 90% said that they were still worried about their business leading into 2023. 40% of those people said that they plan to combat that by reducing their own personal wages and benefits. And for me, that's a scary thing, because we go into business and we want to create this amazing thing, and then it becomes this great weight that we carry. And one of the things that I recognize very early for myself is that staff have higher capacity to lend money and do things, and they are seen as having more job security as the business owner themselves. And it's often the business owner that takes things away from themselves before they make changes in their business. So what am I going to focus on today? So this is all about the creation of a 5-part workshop series, and it's a leader into my business, and I want to offer value to small business owners. So I've identified 5 key areas that I want to talk through with business owners to actually give them some tools to look objectively at their business and to take the emotion and the stress out of it. There's no magic wand. I can't make staff fall out of the sky. I can't change the economic forecast, but what I can do is give people some tools to work through their own personal stuff so that it doesn't impact their business and their success. So I'm just going to talk today briefly through each of the 5. Transactional versus relational stresses. So there's 101 business coaches out there that will work with you on the transactional side of things. So cash flow, are your systems set up? Do you have the right number of people? Do you have the right products? What's your marketing looking like? They're all your transactional side of business, and they do create stress, but they are very goal orientated, I guess. And that's where business coaches come in. That's not the lane that I want to work in. Relational stress in business, if we take the scientific explanation of what a relationship is, it's simply the distance between 2 things. So I want to show people what their relationship to their business is like. And really, I want to do that by having people look at their business like a person, so creating a persona. And John sent out a worksheet that I had created for this course for you guys. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it or not, but it steps people through creating that persona for their business. So who is their business if it was a person? If you were in a relationship with your business, what would they be? So recently they did a study, and it was quite a large study in Cyprus, And although there's some cultural differences between Cyprus and Australia, they're massively run by small business. So I think that some of the information that is gleaned from that study is very translatable to the Australian market. And one of the things that they focused on was the personal resilience of an owner-manager, excuse me, directly impacts the business resilience when there is external stresses and crisis like we've seen with the pandemic. So within that study, I didn't put a lot of information up here, but I just wanted to read a couple of things. The smaller financially vulnerable businesses were the ones facing closure or serious economic disruptions. Conversely, there were many businesses that were able to rise to the challenge, to pivot and to make changes to their business models, introduce new platforms and new products, and actually use the stress created by COVID to advance their business. So they really focused on what was the part of the business that was able to create that for those businesses that succeeded. And what they found was that there's a direct link between the owner-manager and their resilience, their personal resilience, and the resilience of the business and their capacity to move. So the next slide actually talks a little bit about stress and resilience. So I'll go through that in a minute. But in relating to aligning personal values and business values, in this section of the workshop, I really want to give people some understanding of personal values are what create your business values, but they're not always translatable directly from one place to another. And I want to really get people to focus on, throughout the COVID crisis and how the business has progressed over time, has the values of the business augmented or changed, and they're not now aligning with us personally? So do we feel disconnected from the business? Do we feel like it's taken on a life of its own and we're struggling to even understand where it's coming from? And we'll have a look in that area about the confounds of absenteeism versus presenteeism. Now, that's all about, you know, when staff in a business are absent, or when owners are absent, it has a massive impact on the business. But when they're not well mentally and they're present in the business, it can have an equally destructive effect and flow-on effect in the business. So I really want to tease that apart a bit for people and give them some understanding. And that's one way that mental health first aid, something that I train, can actually help those businesses. So I don't know if you guys have heard about the window of tolerance. It's a bit of a psychology term, counselling term, but it's a really clear way of understanding how we experience stress or safety. This slide calls it safety, but when you're operating in that green zone within the window, that's where we make great decisions. That's where we operate at our optimal. That's where our resilience and our capacity to self-regulate come into play. If a person has a trauma history, if they have a negative belief system, if they're low in self-efficacy, then their window becomes smaller and smaller. So it gets tighter and tighter. And if you're operating as a business owner with a really small window of tolerance, then anything's going to set you off. So if a staff member is having a bad day and they personally attack you because they're not able to deal with their own situation, then what happens is you spike out of that window of tolerance, and it can go either way. It can go up into hyperarousal, which means that you get into that fight response and you start maybe attacking the staff member or throwing your arms up and wondering, what the hell am I going to do with this business? Or it can go down into hyperarousal, and that's the freeze and flight response, which really puts a dampener on your capacity to actually be present in your business and deal with the day-to-day running of it. So when I'm working with somebody on a personal basis, this is what we're looking to do to increase their personal resilience, is to widen that window. And when things happen, you've got more of a buffer zone to be able to deal with the stress, go up a little bit, and then regulate and come back down into that window and stay within that blue zone where you're able to learn and enjoy life and find balance and connect with your staff. So in regards to mental health first aid, this is something that I took on in 2018 to become an accredited instructor. I actually really enjoy delivering mental health first aid courses. We often concentrate on our physical first aid, and a lot of it's written into our OSH practices for bigger companies that we have to have physical first aid officers in case of crisis, in case of incidents and accidents. Mental health first aid is on the discussion board, I guess, to start coming into OSH for bigger businesses, but the tools can be really effective for small business owners too. So I'm going to try and I was going to play both of these videos, but I might just play one and just give you an understanding of what skills are involved in mental health first aid. So we'll see if it works. Might have to go out of full screen. Hopefully this works for you guys.
Maybe copy and paste the link. Yeah, you got an upload blocked.
Oh, okay. So yeah. It's not working?
No.
All right.
So maybe just
That's fine.
Copy and paste the link and go to Chrome.
Yeah, you're still sharing your PowerPoint, not your browser. If it's opened in a browser.
Yeah, let me have a quick look. I might have to send it to you guys. I might have to send it to you guys separately, if that's okay, and you can have a look at it outside of this.
Put the two links into the chat anyway, Katie.
I will. So the links here, one of them is actually mental health first aid in action in a business and what it looks like in a workplace. And the second is just about what skills are available to learn within mental health first aid. So personally, I deliver them face-to-face. It's a 12-hour nationally accredited course like first aid, physical first aid, or I can do Zoom online sessions for people to make it more convenient for them. So the last place I wanted to talk to people about is understanding self-compassion versus self-care. So there's a great quote here. Self-compassion is generally defined as having an attitude of kindness and consideration towards oneself. Self-care is essentially the actions and approaches that embody being kind and considerate to oneself. So we often think self-care is the thing that we need to focus on, but preceding that is self-compassion. It's the space of understanding that we can't do everything, that is finding what we are good at and then asking for help in our business around the things that we're maybe not so good at. Myself, it is creating my website. I spent many hours with WordPress thinking that I could do everything. Peter, you will laugh at that, but I think that eventually I was just like, you know what? The time I've spent doing this could be productive time in my business. So I had to then enact some self-care and find somebody that could do that for me. Self-care also looks like taking time out of the business. And when small business owners are cutting their own wages and they're cutting their own benefits and they're spending more time in the business to keep it afloat, self-care is the thing that goes out the window first. And it is often the thing that buffers that window of tolerance and actually helps people stay regulated and present enough to be able to continue in their business. So it's really important. I know how difficult it is personally when you need to be in the business. When Michael goes back on the tools, we all have to adjust. If we've got staff off, we had staff off with COVID and we had other people taking leave. So it's not something that's that doesn't happen in our business life, but we definitely then have to look at measuring that against what are we doing to self-regulate? What are we doing to bring ourselves back? What are we doing to balance the effect of having to do that? So personally, this is where I see my customer journey. I see my points of difference going to market as the 20 years experience that I have. The fact that I am trauma-informed, and trauma-informed, I think, deserves a little bit of explanation because it's a bit of a catchphrase at the moment. Everybody is saying that they're trauma-informed. I've done specific training in trauma, and I've worked with people with complex trauma. And I think that I have a very good understanding and a good basis of skills to actually address trauma when it comes up and to recognize coping strategies that are built on top of that trauma. I've got counselling skills from my training, and I really want to take a personal approach to organisational psychology. So rather than going in for the organisation, I want to be going in for the people, including the owner of the business. And the mental health first aid feeds into that as well. So I see people coming in at websites, socials, referrals, maybe downloading some recorded content, thinking about creating some downloadable PDFs to for people to get onto my mailing list, and then get some free resources as I create them. I'd like this workshop to be part of that next step for the customer. Potentially a mental health first aid course if it's the right option for them. Individual therapy if that's what they choose. And then workplace consultation, I guess, would be the bigger ticket item to actually go into a business and to look at creating a wellbeing plan with the business owner, to do some research into their business, to interview staff, to pick apart all of those things that I've just talked about with them personally. So I guess from you guys today, what I'm really looking for is this concept relatable and marketable? My price point, I was thinking of offering it as a 5-part for $60 each. I'm not sure how I would deliver that, if it would be in person at business centres or if it would be online via Zoom. Then I could probably make it at a lower cost point as a loss leader. Mental health first aid accreditation, I'm pretty set on my costs for that. And as far as consultation, I haven't actually priced myself for consultation. So this is a new business to me. It is something that I'm putting out there. And yeah, I'd really love to hear what you guys have to say. That's it.
That's it.
The end.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've got stuff to say, Katie. It's Tam here. We haven't met before, and my instant reaction to it is very, very positive. I think it could be a fantastic support for people that really need it, and I would literally talk to you about attending your workshop myself and some of the different things you do. I think you're very clever to look at your pricing, because I think that's a real stopping point for very small businesses in terms of what they'll spend money on.
Particularly in the context of what you were saying around people reducing their own salaries, etc. You know, that's one of the challenges we've definitely found with operating with small business. is that price point for sure.
The $60 per workshop, I think, is very, very reasonable. And it's whether it works for you financially and whether what might come out of that has the advantage. So does the consultation, the pricing of that be higher, and then it's worth your while? And of course we could talk about that separately, but yeah, my initial reaction to it is like, oh, fantastic, you're here, I'm going to talk to you. So so that's not bad for one person's reaction, but it's only my reaction, so I don't know what the rest of the team thought.
Fully agree
Thank
with what
you
you said there. Yeah, I mean, especially that cost point. There's a lot of people that don't want to invest the money in themselves, especially if things are tight. So as soon as I saw that price of $60 per workshop, I just went, "Wow, really? That's fantastic. That's actually something that a lot of people would just, you know, not have to think so much about doing, because especially if things are tight, then well, you're not going to spend money. But for something that's going to give you a long-term benefit yourself, well, $60 is a small investment, really." So having something that's going to be affordable, and even, you know, that $330 or $300, including GST. Sorry, I thought it was $330. It's still just a fantastic price point that would encourage people to actually get in there and do it.
thank you
And Kay, the $60 workshop, is that what sort of time are you allocating to that, and how many of them?
Well, there's 5.
That's 5, of course, 5-part workshop. There's a clue in the title, sorry. But how long
Yeah.
will each workshop be?
I'm thinking 45 minutes.
Okay.
What I'm pitching to is people that are already moving towards that crisis point. There's a lot of things coming out now. I know Black Dog Institute and a couple of Beyond Blue are now running government-funded mental health, I guess, workshops for people that are already finding themselves in the hole. And I really want to work just before that. I want to be that proactive piece that gets people before they fall into that space and things start going really wrong.
Yeah, great.
The other thing I like about this is that you've already got an ascension model, what I call an ascension model in place, Katie. So this is the starting point and you're going to take people up. I think I'd encourage you to stick to your point of difference, which is, and you've just highlighted there, Black Dog, good. Your point of difference is small business owners, which you understand. So I think absolutely go with that. And you've got the qualification. So I'll offend people here, but you're not just another bloody counsellor. You've got a shitload of stuff behind you that's going to really give people confidence. And I think the other thing with having a small business grouping is that it'll give people confidence to talk about how they're really dealing with stuff, because they're with their herd, as you probably hear other people mention it. So I think you've got the opportunity to use that and really build your own herd of people that will just start to really get that business to lift up and take along. And
yeah, I think that building, exactly what Andrew was saying about building, because the only question I've got is the financial viability for you, but I think of stuff that we've done, and we will spend money if we've had an opportunity to be introduced to the person, introduced to the benefits, and go, this is worth an amount of money, and that amount of money will match what you would find, I believe, useful and profitable to your business. So I suppose that's small business for me, particularly micro businesses like many of us are. The challenge is always having them spend money. So is it at the price point where you will have enough people say yes? But because of the model you've got, I think you could work people through that model to where they're, oh yeah, I'm comfortable, I want you to come and talk to us, I'll pay an amount per hour that's a reasonable amount per hour for your time or for your individual treatment or whatever. People should be able to work through it.
I think, just touching on what you just said, Tam, about financial viability, like the reality is you do need to do the math on this. That's very affordable, very manageable. But what is the client acquisition cost? And obviously that's unknown. And what's the sales pipeline side? I think one thing to consider, is looking for strategic partners, people that can actually just feed you the work. Because otherwise, like for any of us, it's educating our clients as to the merit of what we do. In one of your earlier slides, there was something really resonated with me, and I think it's an important education point. I'm sidetracking now from the point I was going to make, and that was you identify the transactional versus relational stresses. Like bringing that distinction for people is like, oh, okay, so that's, because reading that sentence, I've got no idea what that means. But then you explained it. So I think you need to convey that so people identify, right, that's a relational stressor, and that's what you focus on. So they get it. And that's great, wonderful, but my God, trying to educate people is our biggest hurdle. It just is, Franco with his specialty skills, education is the battle with, I could go around the room. And that's going to be the hard part for you. Years ago, we had come into the group a lady, Tracy Loebscher, part-time CFO. Her business ended up after, 7-10 years, whatever. She's got a job and she's happy and life's wonderful. But the difficulty for her was education. So you need to find strategic partners, people that see your people, that your ideal client, before you see them. Options, and I don't know what's available in the government. You mentioned about government funding. I was involved with Black Dog a number of years ago, and you mentioned about government funding, or somebody said something about government funding somewhere. The government system at the moment for business owners, it used to be called the ASPAS system, and it's now called something else. And they have business coaches, digital marketing strategies, whatever, and you pay $44, $77 or whatever it is, you get 7 hours worth of stuff. And the funding comes from the government. There might be something in that space for this. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the things that has been suggested to me is to look at Small Business Development Corporation, because they will pay facilitators to come in and run courses for their clients.
Yep.
So that's a possibility.
Yeah. There's a business coach I know that leverages from that. And there's, what's her name? Online Social Butterfly, Sarah Thompson. She has built this freaking massive business off the back of ASPAS. It is just off the charts. And so that might be just the perfect plug-in to get it kicked off. Because this mental health, it's in the public space, it's in the business space, you've got all those stats. So there might be just something that just boom, kick you off.
Yeah, and there's some obvious potential with short, punchy sessions at networking groups. What are they called? 31.
Peters goes to that.
Yeah,
BCI, but that's
go up a digit. 32. District
32. There you go. Yeah.
Latitude of Perth.
Yeah. I think yes. The early stage is. I agree with Peter. I think it's actually having people understand in as succinct a way as possible what you're really offering. Is going to be your first challenge, and getting in front of as many faces as possible so that you can start the momentum of word of mouth, which I think, to be honest, is going to be your biggest ally once things are running, because when people are finding stuff difficult and they talk to each other, and then when they talk to each other, they go, have you tried blah, 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 blah,
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
But the networking group, District 32 there is opportunities in groups like that as well, because you've got different ways to reach. It's a large organisation, 350 members.
Is it just for business owners or is it for employees?
District 32?
No, Katie's program.
So employees can do mental health first aid. That is a program where I train it in the community as well as to small business. If if an employer sees an opportunity to send an employee to the workshops, then I don't see why not. If they've got a business manager or if they've got an admin or a HR person, I could see that they would potentially benefit. They're not my target, but I think we could definitely look down the track at targeting something towards employee groups.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, you think about it. If you've got an organisation, you know, me, I've got 7 people on the team. I want my team to be empowered. And this frees people, empowers people. Possibility.
Yeah, I see the culture discussion really being a good space to work with small teams in businesses. In regards to referral partners, I think I've identified people working with vulnerable clients. So anybody in insurance, anybody in financial advice, bookkeepers, accountants, they're good referral partners, business coaches that are doing the transactional side, but recognize that they're not skilled to cope with the emotional or relational side of their clients' needs.
Yep.
As well.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you need to make it very clear on how we, like I, would recognise a client for you, so that something comes up when I'm working with someone, I think, oh, hell yeah, they should go to Katie. You know, how would we recognise the ideal client? Because then you can put that out to other coaches, as you say, financial advisors, yeah, all those sort of people, to get you the referrals.
On that question, Katie, something that occurred to me as I was watching your presentation is the use of the word relational. And I know that one of the things that I think you're very cleverly doing here is having people think about, you know, how do I relate to my business? Can I create this kind of avatar for my business and see, you know, how do I relate with it? Of course, the other relational element of your work will be around people's relationships with their staff and with other members of the business, that sort of stuff. My question there is, you know, following on from what John's saying, you know, if someone spoke to me and said, oh, you know, I've made such a bad decision hiring this guy and it's causing me so much stress, which, by the way, super common issue, right? Like we deal with this stuff all the time. And, you know, they're lying awake nights and they've got this real problem child on their staff that's causing them stress. If that's the thing that brings them to you, does that fit within the circle of your ideal clients? Like, do you want to be working with people who are wrangling tricky personalities and trying to give them advice around that side of things?
I can certainly work with people from a relationship point of view. I think that my training as a counsellor gives me that capacity. And I think that, I mean, you're right. If you've created this amazing culture, it's the whole adage of one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, right? So people are desperate for staff at the moment. They're bringing people in just to get bums on seats, but they're not onboarding them into the culture. So potentially that's the piece that we can work at before they employ the staff member, but we can also look at, how do I manage this person, or are they not cultural fit in my business, and is it going to be financially better for me to let them go?
I think you're starting to move into territory which can be crowded, because you mentioned, you know, how many coaches there are and all that sort of stuff. So I think part of the thing is to play to your strengths, as you mentioned earlier, and I mentioned that ascension model. So it's chunking your offerings into increasingly higher value ones. So I think it's just thinking through which one of those you're going to stand out in most, so people can come to you, and try to avoid early days getting dragged into those crowded markets.
That's kind of what drove my question, Katie, and thanks, Andrew. That's really, you know, that's where I'm coming from, because I think that one of the dangers, and certainly we've seen this, and I don't know whether you have, Andrew, is that a lot of the time you're saying, and I think very sensibly, what you want to do is you want to help people be proactive. You don't want to get them when it's, you know, almost a little bit too late. You want to get them when you can do something really useful that's going to put them on the right track, right? And often the thing that a lot of people are using to get people through the door in the coaching world is, you're already in pain. Let me help you with that, you know, because people are already in pain. They're calling around for whatever solution they can find. So the real question will be, how can you get the attention of people who are at that pre-abject pain stage, right?
Yeah. I mean, there has to be a motivation to adapt anything or to take anything. So they have to be in a space where something's not working to do anything. Otherwise, there's no motivation. People whose businesses are running smoothly and happily and not my clients.
There. That's actually a really good point, Katie, to watch out for, because I expressed a lot of enthusiasm, but I am a particular kind of person. So everything is okay with us, and I can see things I can feel better about and things I can talk to you about. And because I'm one of those learner kind of people, I'm like, awesome, Katie, let's talk. But would someone else that's in my position go, awesome, Katie, let's talk? Some would, and some wouldn't be able to see the risk they're running at the moment. So yeah, that's a good point that people are raising around, well, how am I? Most people go, I'm all right, fall in a heap, rather than, hang on, I'm seeing some warning signs here, you know?
Yeah, what's the punchiest way of drawing, you know, connecting the dots and helping people see what the end of a particular line is? What are the stories that you can tell? How can you help people to see the connection between managing their emotional well-being and their bottom line and the survival of their business, you know, all that sort of stuff, without being a person who comes in and just tells people lots of horrible doom and gloom stories and depresses the hell out of it, right? That's a real challenge.
That reminds me, while I've got you, Katie, there's an American fellow that I really like. He's on Facebook, called George Kao. If you haven't heard of him before, Kao. George Kao, authentic business coach. And his last couple of posts have really matched the questions you're asking here. Like, you know, when you said, I've had a great time talking to myself, but does the market want it? One of his most recent points talks about that, some of the questions to ask yourself. He also talks about raising pain points without being, in my opinion, kind of immoral around it, like scaring the you-know-what out of everyone. Like, how do you say what you can do without it being so fear-based that it doesn't actually match your own values? So his name's George Kao on Facebook.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
You're welcome.
I think that the thing about referrers, again, Stephen put in there that as an accountant, he, you know, sees quite a few business owners that are stressed. And I think bookkeepers probably do as well, Helen. You know, so I think there's a lot to be said for getting in front of those sort of people, so that because quite often it's not the person themselves that knows that they need you. It's people around them that know that they need you. You know what I mean? It's like the mental health, the depression thing. You know, I went through a period years ago of being depressed. I didn't know I was depressed. It wasn't until someone I was having lunch with said, you know what, I think you're suffering from depression. And then I started to do a bit of research into, well, how do I know if I'm depressed? But, you know, so it's quite often not the person themselves, it's the people around them. So interesting.
Thank you.
I want to move on. I'm going to stop the recording now so that